Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Andy's Shed Live. This is Series 10, Episode 18 for Sunday, the 1st of May 2022. Hello everybody, how are you and welcome to the show. Yeah, we are back again. It is Sunday the 1st of May today. But not May Day. That's not happening till tomorrow. So yeah, another month has gone into the year, and we're still no further forward, it seems, at the moment. But yeah, I hope you've had a good week anyway, and we've got a relatively shortish show for you tonight. But I must tell you about next week, because next week I am not going to be sat here next week. I will be out and about showing you a few of the things that have been happening around here next week, and then the following week we've got a week off again. So this is the last time I'm going to be sat here for a couple of weeks and that. So if you've got any telephone questions or anything, send them in to me tonight and I'll try and answer them, because then we're going to be doing other things for a couple of weeks, sort of thing. Right, I'll just log into YouTube on my phone so I can see the chat and see what everybody is up to on there. Doo-be-doo-doo. And of course it serves me an ad, just like it serves you an ad. Alright, it's doing it. I've been on a mission today, a major mission today to save a vintage streetlight. The patrons will already have seen about the saving the vintage streetlight, but everybody else will probably see it next week. So who have we got in the chat tonight? We've got Christopher. Yes, I did get your emails, Christopher. More about them in a minute or two. We've got Jimmy's here, Wesley's here, Peter's here, Gambo's here, Miguet's here. Crikey, everybody's here tonight. Right, what have you all been saying? Basically, hello. Jimmy says, Andy, this music sounds like it should have been on Animal Magic. Which one's that? Yeah, some of it. The music is specially designed to sound like test card music, circa 1970 something. So I hope we've managed that. Peter says, now it sounds like it's a western. Yeah, it's all sorts, you see. Yeah, it's all sorts. The music, we have varied musical maybe musical tastes, if you like, on here. Peter says, I'd love it to be the New World Symphony. We'll see that should be able to copyright that. We'll see what we can do on that one, Peter. Peter says, all my family are from the north, and the Hovis ads reminds me of home and my youth. Hey, when I were a lad, bread we nowt take now. No, that was something else, wasn't that? Right? That was Allinson bread, weren't it? Bread we nowt take now. Right. Yeah, how the hell did we get onto that anyway? What is going on tonight? Yes, right, here we are for last time for a couple of weeks. 1, 2, 3 weeks time, I think. I'll be back sat here in 3 weeks time. If you've got any questions, send them in to me tonight via the chat. If you want to know how to get into the chat, just watch on the YouTube page and you will see the little chat box at the side of the screen thing. You have to log in to YouTube to chat though. And I know there's more of you watching this than are chatting on it at the minute, and also with the chat. If you see it up as top chat, click the little menu thing and change it to live chat. I've got no idea why it is, but top chat only seems to show a certain number of messages. It seems to miss some of them out for some reason. I've never quite figured out why. So just click the little menu thing and turn it onto live chat, and it will sort of do much more. This at the side of me here, this is live chat. And it's on the screen there for the benefit of people, because a lot of people these days, including me, watch YouTube live streams back after the event on devices where you can't see the chat, i.e. things like smart TVs and stuff that don't show the chat. So to know what I'm talking about and who I'm responding to, that's why we put the chat there as well. Chris says he's got a new trend phone, which indeed he has. Gambo says, "Hi Andy, I won't keep you back last week, Soz. I felt bad as you ended up on air for an extra 50 minutes. Oops. Don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. To be quite honest, we need the watch time, so it's fine." But I must admit, I've not watched Dominic Chinneer's video for this week yet. Some of you may know Dominic Chinneer. It's Dom from the Repair Shop, if you watch the Repair Shop on TV. Every Sunday night he puts, or every Sunday afternoon actually, he puts out a new video on YouTube, and I normally watch it before this starts, but I've been doing a bit of technical stuff this afternoon. Not that you'd notice, would you? So I haven't watched it yet, so I'll have to watch Dom later on. So sorry Dom, I've not watched the video yet. I'll watch it later. He's making Ranelagh wheeling machines. Chris says he got to go on the old Red Rattler, the Tate train, for the first time with his friends the other day. He did indeed. He knows something. I can prove it because Christopher sent us a photo of going on the old Red Rattler. If I can press the right button. There we go. There's the old Red Rattler that's been restored now out there in Oz that Christopher travelled on the other day. And there's Christopher on the left with his mates on the train. What are the photos on the train? Were those photos behind you, Christopher, originally on that train? Because we had something similar in very old carriages here in the UK, but they were much slimmer, the photos, and that they were like panoramic photos in the UK. They weren't sort of that shape. And there's another shot of the train. These things survived in service, these trains, until relatively recently. You know, they really were sort of quite elderly by the time they came out of service. This one's been restored, and now it's back on track, and quite a nice restoration job as well. If you go over to Christopher's channel, Christopher 2000 on YouTube, he's got some video of it running on there, and they've made a really good job of the restoration of this train. Also from Christopher, does anybody recognise that as a screenshot of anything? Yeah? No? No? I just realised there's a phone number on there. I wonder if that phone number's real or if that's not. Well, it's actually a screenshot from the television show The Bill. Does that give it away anymore? That's one of the characters from The Bill from years ago using the phone. And Christopher has made a phone that is a prop of The Bill. So he's created the Bill prop phone, and that's the Mark 1 746 that is. Was it a Mark 1 then on that? Oh yes, so it was. Hadn't spotted that. No prizes from Zoe. I'll tell you something though about that Mark 1 on there on the bill. Somebody's put the button in backwards. You see the button on the top above the dial? It's the wrong way around. It needs to be rotated 180 degrees, because when you press that button down, it should go flush with the phone. So it should, the top of it should be sloped towards the back, like the phone slopes down towards the back. So somebody's put that in the wrong way around. So is yours in the wrong way around, Christopher? That is the question. It's not got a button on it. Now come on now. If you're making a prop phone, that's a serious error there, Christopher. You need a push button on the top of there, not a blanking plate. So there's your next challenge for something to do. But talking of challenges, he's come up with this as well. This I actually really like this. This is one of the best versions of this that I've seen. This is a glowing trim foam, as you'll see. Also a creation of Christopher 2000. And as you can see on the back there, it's an ordinary 722, sort of rebuilt in 1978 by the looks of it. And that's what it looks like at night. And what he's actually done is he's put LEDs in it behind there. And I think I'm remembering this right from what he put in his email, the LEDs are powered by a small sort of wall wart transformer that is sending a small voltage up the unused fourth wire of the line cord. Is that right, Christopher? You've used the fourth wire of the line cord to a wall wart transformer to send a few volts up, enough to power however many LEDs it is that's in there. But it does look quite good, and of course that will stay lit all the time. I think. Does it stay lit all the time? No reason it shouldn't if you're powering it from a wall wart, is there? Which is how trim phones were, of course. They did glow all the time when they were new, because they weren't actually powered. It was the radioactive tritium tube that was behind the dial that made them glow. And although the tritium tubes, you still find them with the tritium tubes in, the half-life of tritium is so low, so short rather, that there's no glow left in tritium anymore. And before anybody asks this question, because I know some people will, because I get asked this every time I mention it, people go, oh, they say it's what? It's tritium. Oh no, it's radioactive. It's radioactive dials in telephones. Oh my God, are all telephones dangerous? The answer is no. No, all telephones are dangerous, unless they fall out of a fourth floor window onto your head. Then they might be, but but no, certainly not from radioactivity. They're not dangerous. Tritium, the half-life of tritium is so short, it's completely inert by now. Tritium that was around in the 1970s, and or as near as damn it to completely inert. And tritium isn't particularly dangerous in those amounts anyway that it was in the dials. So although it glows green and it's very like Homer Simpson coming back from the nuclear power plant, it's not actually dangerous tritium. So it just looks pretty, but it doesn't really affect. Have we got any more, Christopher? No, we're back to the red rattler again. So that's Christopher's pictures that he's sent in. If you want to send in any pictures about red rattlers or trim phones or anything else within reason for that matter, remember that you will find a contact form on our website here at andyshed.coldpress.net. Fill that in and then I will drop you an email back, and then you can send photos to the email, and we'll get them in when I'm next sat here in 2 or 3 weeks time. Cool. Marvellous, isn't it? Right, what's everybody up to? What did you say? Could do some current limiting on those LEDs, Christopher. Yeah, they did look a bit bright, but yeah. Christopher says he's put a 1K resistor in to run the LED on 12 volts. And oh yeah, it reminds me that he has got a video on his channel showing how that phone was done as well, how he made it. So get on over there, search Christopher 2000 on YouTube, you'll find him. You'll also find his railway channel as well, which is equally excellent. And you'll go and give him a like and that. Get him up to 1,000 subscribers, and he can do this live stream. Yeah, I could have a Sunday off. We could link it to you, Christopher, and I could have a Sunday off. That sounds cool. Right, there we have it. That's what everybody's got to say. What's everybody been up to then this week and stuff? I've not been doing a massive amount other than rescuing the light. As me gets here, me get likes light bulbs, doesn't it? I'll go and find the light bulb. Just bear with me a second. Right, I'm back. I have returned. So, as I say, I went and rescued a street light today that was laid in a field, believe it or not a million miles away from where I live. And this is the sort of shade. You'd think this is glass, it's not, it's plastic. This is the bit that goes under the lantern, of course, that the light shines out of in a street light. And I've taken it off because, as you can see, it's absolutely filthy inside, and it all wants cleaning up and that. So I've taken it off to dunk it in some warm soapy water and give it a nice clean. But the thing about it is, street light. Here's what you don't see very often, unless you collect light bulbs, right? How about that for a light bulb? That is the light bulb out of the street light, and I am hoping it still works. Now it does say on it what it is. It's a Philips. I can't read it because of the way the light is in here. Hang on. If anybody'd like to buy me a new pair of eyes for next Christmas, that'd be marvellous. It's a Philips PSG 35 watt light bulb. And I believe, I'm not sure, because I'm not an expert on these at all, I believe this is a low pressure sodium lamp. I believe. Which is kind of odd, but yeah, marvellous. So that is the lamp out of the street light. I did rescue another street light, something called an Esler street light, ages and ages ago, from somewhere down in the back garden. Actually, again, not a million miles from me, not the same place, but again quite close by. And they'd had this Esler street lamp in the back garden. Now, Esler street lamps are interesting because they just use an ordinary sort of filament light bulb, like a big one, a 100-watt one or 150-watt one. And I remember them as a kid in the 1970s around Chesterfield. There's a suburb of Chesterfield called Brimington that had Esler street lights, and they changed them when I was still a kid and got rid of them. But I found this one in a garden, on a modern lamppost in a garden. Modern lamppost that had been cut down to make it a bit shorter, but I got all the swan neck bit off the top and all the fancy Esler casting and that, and that's one. I'll probably show you that next week. We'll probably be able to show you that when we go on a little outside thing next week. Miguel says it's a sodium vapor SOX lamp. Yeah, I think that's right, Miguel. Yeah, low pressure sodium. I think this. I don't know how you tell if they're okay, other than putting a meter across the contacts and seeing if you get. Would you get continuity across them with this? Because I'm not sure how these work. Miguel will tell us how a sodium vapor lamp works. Because the thing about it is, there's not a filament through it. There's sort of two wires that inside this outer glass tube. I don't know if you can see. There's like an inner glass tube that goes sort of from here around here and then back down again. And in the ends of this inner glass tube, there's two sort of electrical connections in each one, but there's no filament that goes up and around. The filament seems to just jump across from one connection to the other connection in that end of the tube, and another filament jumping across in the other end of the tube. So I'm guessing those filaments excite the vapor, and the vapor glows, and that's how it works. That's my guess, but I don't know. Like I say, I'm not an expert. But it's a marvellous thing. It's only 35 watts. That's the incredible thing about it. But probably takes more of a voltage to start it. But yeah, it's a very sculptural. It's a very sculptural thing. Now I've got a question for Miguel or anybody else who knows. This lamp was perfectly horizontal like that when it was in place. It was on a corner bracket on a wall, actually, that had been modified slightly to fit onto a telephone pole. But do these bulbs have to run horizontal, or can they run upright, or can they run tilted? Because some street lights have got like a tilted head on, haven't they? And if it's tilted, does it have to tilt a certain way, the bulb, or can it run in any orientation that you want? Does it make any difference, or will the bulb blow faster if it's not in the correct orientation? Anybody who knows, let me know. Right, I'm going to put it down now before I drop it. But yeah, I suppose it's going to be a case of good luck getting replacement light bulbs for that if we get it working, isn't it? They have just recently here replaced outside on the street outside here. They have just replaced the old orange street lights with modern, I assume they're LEDs, which give out a white light. And the ones here aren't too bad. They are quite bright. The ones in Sheffield, where they've done it in Sheffield, are absolutely hopeless. You know, you might as well not have street lights in Sheffield now. They're terrible. But the ones here are not too bad. But I kind of miss the orange colour. You know, the orange colour, when you went out on a cold winter's night, the orange colour made you feel a little bit warmer. But now it's this cold white colour, you know. You go out and it's 0 degrees and it feels like minus 30. So, right. Peter says, friends of mine in Cambridge still have council maintained gas lantern street lights. Yes, there are a few gas ones still around in Cambridgeshire. There's some other place. There's some in Nottingham as well. There's famously some in Malvern, where there's a volunteer group that looks after them. There's about 100 in Malvern Hills. There's also a lot in London. There's a load in Westminster, which right now, even as I speak, Westminster Council is planning to change from being gas lights to modern LEDs. They're planning to rip them out and put modern LED replicas in their place. So get on to Westminster Council and go, oi, Westminster Council, no, leave them alone. Because, as usual, of course, councils go their own sweet bloody way, don't they? How can you tell when a councillor's lying? Answer their lips move. Peter says, I like the sodium lights but not the light pollution when I'm using my telescope. You'll not get any pollution from the LEDs in Sheffield because you can't blooming see them, not even if you're under them, let alone above them. Miguel says, that lamp is a discharge lamp with electrodes that heat up a choke, provides the kick to get it working. Best run horizontal. Right, I see. So I have got, in the rest of the lamp, which I will show you next week, I have got the little box, which I assume is where the choke is to warm it up, because I've got a little metal box, but it's actually quite a big box when you see it close up, that's got a massive, great big old-fashioned fuse in it, and something else in a fairly substantial plasticky white Bakelite sort of case, and I'm assuming that's the choke that gives it the kick to get it going. Chris says he can do live streams off his phone to YouTube. Excellent, that's what I'm going to be doing next week, Christopher, so we can move about. Well, it says, it's a fair point about the light pollution, Peter, from an astronomy point of view, but I'm not keen on treading on the output of reckless dog owners. I thought it was the output of the dogs, not the owners, that was the problem. But you never know, it depends what they like where you are there, Wesley. But yeah, I mean, here, the LED street lights they put in here, fair play to Derbyshire County Council, stroke Bolsover District Council, whoever it is that's in charge of the street lights here. But fair play to them. The LEDs, which I assume are LEDs that they've put in, because they've just put them in, here, are relatively bright and, you know, give a reasonable spread of light. But the ones in Sheffield, where there was a massive contract for millions and millions of pounds given to a company called Amy, to basically replace all the street lights and re-tarmac the roads and all this kind of thing, I can only describe what they've done with the street lighting in Sheffield as shoddy, and that's being charitable about it. And the other thing about it is Sheffield had got lots of beautiful sort of late 1800s, early 1900s cast iron street lamp columns that probably would have originally been gas lights, but had electric light heads put on them over the years. And instead of just changing the heads to LEDs, they've completely ripped those columns out and put horrible modern columns in. And I cannot see why they could not have just changed the bulb to an LED bulb. But no. And there's also listed surgas destructor lights, if you know what one of those is, in Sheffield. There's around about 20 of them, I believe, all around Sheffield, that were supposed to be restored as part of this Amy thing, and they seem to have swapped the gubbins inside of those for LEDs, so they've not actually restored them, and some of those were working, still working as gas lights until Amy got the grubbing mitts on them. So I have had battles, nay wars, with people on Sheffield City Council about this, particularly in Nether Edge. There was one particular councillor who shall remain nameless in Nether Edge, who, if she saw me at an event she was attending, she wouldn't get out of the car and she would just drive off and not actually attend the event. I wish I had that effect on all councillors, keep them all out of my way. As you can tell, I don't have much time for them. I'm sure there's some good ones out there, it's just none in Sheffield. Right, what's everybody up to? Jimmy says, Andy, when you were talking about councils, you sounded just like Harry Enfield. Oh, my Sheffield City Council! No! Get out! Yeah, like that. Was that it? Gambo says, has anyone seen my intercom thing on the forum and any idea what it is from? Yeah, I've seen it. If you guys have not seen it, remember you can go and have a look on the forum, which is here, gpotelephones.proboards.com. I have seen it, Gambo, and I've got no idea what it's from. I've seen them before, those sort of Bakelite looking intercom things, and I believe they were a kid's toy. But I'm not 100% certain. I'm not totally certain on it. But it is basically two fairly simplified telephones, you know, that are basically bare bones phones, two handsets. You pick one up and you can listen in the other, and vice versa. It's the electronic version of two cans and a piece of string. But there are buttons on it, aren't there? So I've got no idea what the buttons are for. Christopher says he's got a 1990 street lamp. It's a 50 watt mercury vapor. Cool. Apparently this one's from the 1970s. The bracket and the main part that sort of goes on the side of the building, I've got a feeling is probably from the 1950s or 60s, but the actual lantern bit of it was certainly in Thorne's catalogue in 1972 from the research that I've done this afternoon. The bracket and that is made by a company called Revo, and the lantern is Thorne. And I'm pretty sure that Revo bracket would have originally had a Revo lantern on it as well, which was probably a round one, because if it came from where I got it from, i.e. if it was used in the little village where I got it from, out of this field, you know, if it had like been attached to a telephone pole and the pole had fell over in the wind into the field or something, and that's how the owners of the field had got the lamp, then I'm pretty sure it would have had a round Revo lantern on it originally, because it's a very rural area. They wouldn't have needed a big massive lamp, and they've just changed it for a more modern one in the early 1970s, it would seem, which is now is vintage itself, of course. So yeah, but these things are rapidly disappearing with this LED conversion and that, so it's just one of the things that I'm grabbing for the sake of posterity before they're all gone and everybody goes, oh, why didn't we save any of those? I've got a gas light as well, but that's another story. Chris says, did you see the email that I sent about using acetone on handsets? I did, Christopher. Yeah, you sent me an email, didn't you, about a white bloom you'd got when you were restoring a dark grey telephone handset, and you'd done the acetone trick to try and bring the colour back, try and take the top surface off, what is technically known as chemical sanding, and you'd got a bit of a white bloom with the acetone. Had you used any, what the Americans would call denatured alcohol, or what we would call methylated spirits, on that when you got that white bloom? Because I've seen this white bloom as well, and I put it down to the meths. When I stopped using meths and just started watering down the acetone to get a smoother finish, instead of the meths for the sort of second stage in the process, I didn't get as much of that white bloom. But it does happen from time to time, this white bloom. I've seen it on phones that I've got from other people, that they've retro brighted and that. So it's some sort of chemical reaction, I would think, and it's very hard to get off. You basically really have to sand the surface down again to get rid of it. It seems to happen more on certain colours of phones as well. It happens on dark colours a lot. It doesn't seem to happen so much on ivory ones, and it doesn't seem to happen so much on the light grey cases either, but it certainly happens on the dark grey, and it happens on the Concord blue as well. But sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and I've never quite understood it as to what it is. And he says he's only used acetone on the handset. Yeah, I don't know, Christopher. I don't know the answer to that one. The other thing I wondered about it, about what it might be, when I was doing it, I was I was using various bits of rag to put the acetone on, because as you'll know, when you rub the acetone on, it rubs the top layer of plastic off. That's how the chemical sanding process works, and the plastic gets on whatever bit of rag, bit of cloth it is that you're using, and makes it completely unusable, and you have to use a new bit. So I'd got a big bag of rags, and I was wondering if there was some man-made fibre in those rags, and the acetone was melting the man-made fibre, and that's what was causing the white on the phone. It was something out of the rags, the acetone reacting with something in the rags, that was leaving the white bloom on the phone. I don't know for certain, because like I say, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and the only variable that I can think of in doing it is using a different piece of rag. So I don't know. I don't know, but it's worth finding out. You can get rid of it. Try something like Brasso or some sort of abrasive metal polish, and try that to just buff it out, and you will be able to buff most of it out with that once you've gone back to a relatively smooth finish, and you should be able to buff it out with that. That's what I normally do when it happens to me. Danny says, Chris, have you a build video for the LED trim? You have, haven't you, Christopher? Because I've seen it. Yeah, you have got a build video of it, haven't you? Hello, my phone is ringing. Just bear with me 1 second. I will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back. And I'm back. There you go. Yeah. Why does my phone always ring on a Sunday night these days? Wasn't anything interesting. It was just somebody wanting the dog walking. Wasn't mega exciting. Wasn't somebody else with a street light or Sheffield City Council forming a posse to come and get me. Form a posse, Sheffield City Council. They couldn't form a queue. Right. Right. I think we've got it. I think we've basically gone through all the chatting and things. So yeah, that's what I've been up to today. Going and rescuing vintage streetlights out of fields and things. But it has happened before. I've rescued a couple of cast iron columns as well. That was hard work. There was there was an ordinary, what I call an ordinary column that you used to use everywhere for the gas lights and that. That was heavy enough, but then I found a Derby column, and Derby had specific cast iron streetlight columns in Derby, and I found one. I think it was in Wolverhampton, in a garden in Wolverhampton, and I went to collect it, and part of the deal was you can have it, but you've got to dig it out the garden. Of course, they concreted it in. So me and a friend of mine went to collect it, and we managed to dig it out the garden. But what we hadn't realised is it was much thicker. And of course, it's all cast iron, and it must have been 4 or 5 times the weight of the other one. Really, really, really heavy. And somehow I've got to get this in storage at the minute. Somehow I've got to get them both up here, because one of them is going to have the Esla lamp planted on the top of it and stuck in the garden here. When I get round to it, it's one of those things on my list of things to do. That is. Christopher says, did you ever get CNET working again? I haven't as yet, Christopher. I haven't as yet. The server that does the CNET telephone exchange is sat on the windowsill up here. You can't quite see it in this shot. And it's still theoretically switched on, but something's gone wrong with it, and I cannot for the life of me fathom what it is. So I do need to speak to the CNET people to find out what's actually gone wrong with it. But speaking to the CNET people is not always easy when you've not got CNET working. So I've got to find other ways of contacting them and that. But yeah, it is on my list of things to do. It's just time that is an issue at the moment. Right, okie dokie. I've not got much to tell you on the phone front this week. The German phone is still sat on the desk here from last week. The ivory German one. We think this is made out of Diacon. I'm still not 100% sure, but from the sort of look of it and feel of it, and doing a bit of research on the age, on when these came out and that, it definitely seems like it should be Diacon, this phone. So yeah, it kind of looks like it's Diacon. So one of my other projects that I've got going on is trying to find a chemical that will do with Diacon what acetone does with ABS. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to mend Diacon when I find a chemical that does it. I've got a kind of lead on it, but I need to do some experimenting just to make sure that it does actually work. So again, it's on my list of things to do. I've got a massive list of things to do at the minute. It's really quite ridiculous. Chris says, I just sent a photo of my street light. Right, well, we'll have to put it on in a couple of weeks, Christopher, because I can't get the photo straight out the email and straight onto the screen at the minute. So we'll have to show it next time. Right, I think that is about as far as we might be going for today. Like I say, it's only a short one today. Wesley says, sorry if I miss your response, Andy. How is the EV? The EV is fine. Yeah, it's been out today actually. The electric car, the Peugeot Ion stroke Citroen C0 stroke Mitsubishi IMEV has cost her all the same car with a different badge on, has been out and about today. It's doing on average, and bear in mind it's a 10-year-old electric car, so there will be some battery degradation in it. It's doing on average about 50 miles on a full charge. When you've charged it up in the morning, we've charged it up overnight to full on a trickle charge, and you switch it on in the morning, it says you've got, fairly consistently says you've got 63 miles available to you. But because I live on top of a hill, that is not always accurate. But it seems to consistently do about 50. It may do a bit more, but I wouldn't want to go anywhere that was more than a 50-mile round trip, even though it says it's got 63. Not unless I find somewhere to charge up while I'm out and about, and there are plenty of places to charge up these days. So everybody seems to talk about this this sort of range anxiety about electric cars and that, and everybody goes, oh, I'd be worried about it running out of charge. Well, why don't you worry about your normal car running out of petrol then? What's the difference? I don't see what the difference is. So I just don't have this range anxiety thing. It doesn't bother me. You know, I've got a display on the thing that tells me roughly how far I can go. You know, so the range thing doesn't bother me, and I carry various cables around in the boot of it, so I can either plug it into an ordinary 13 amp socket. If I go somewhere where somebody's got a 13 amp socket, I can just plug it in there. I can plug it into a type, what they call a type 2 charging port, which is the most common one for electric cars. So I can do that, and I can also fast charge on one of these really rapid charge things that charges the whole thing up in about half an hour, or 20 minutes, half an hour, on what they call a Chanamo connector. So it's pretty good. I would recommend the electric car. It does save you some money. It doesn't save you as much money as they say. It all depends how you use it. If you're going to recharge it while you're out, recharging it while you're out and about can be relatively expensive. But even if you charge at the most expensive places, like motorway service stations for instance, it is no more expensive than running your ordinary diesel or petrol car. In fact, it might still be a little bit cheaper with the way diesel and petrol prices have gone now. I think the most expensive charging that I've found at the moment is about 50p a kilowatt hour. And when I charge at home overnight on the cheap tariff after midnight, it's on 15p per kilowatt hour. So that's why it's worth charging it overnight. But that doesn't start until midnight. So what I do is I go and plug the car in, but I don't switch the plug on until midnight. So midnight, after I fell asleep watching the TV, which I normally do, and I woke up again and I realise it's midnight, what I then have to do is put my coat on and just go outside and flick the switch on the socket to turn the charger on. By the time it gets to 7 o'clock in the morning, generally it's charged, because it can charge at up to, on a domestic socket, up to, I believe, about 2 kilowatts per hour, and I think it's a 16 kilowatt battery in it. You know, 8 hours and it's done. And of course it's not going from totally empty every time. It's generally still got a bit of charging, so you know, 7 hours generally it's done. Well, it said, how many kilowatt hours is the battery pack? Like I say, I think it's 16 kilowatt hours, Wesley. It's either 14 or 16, and I think they changed the battery pack at some point while they were making these cars, and I'm not quite sure which one I've got because it's in the changeover period. But 2 kilowatt hours probably doesn't make that much difference. Yeah, I'm charging it generally via a 3-pin plug, via a normal 3-pin plug, when I'm at home, because for that number of kilowatt hours of battery, you can charge over a 3-pin plug at 2 kilowatts per hour, and for that size of battery I can do it in the cheap rate tariff between midnight and 7:30 in the morning. Now if I'd got, let's say, double that capacity of battery, let's say I'd got, for talking, let's say I got 40 kilowatt hours of battery or 30 kilowatt hours of battery. If I've got that or even more kilowatt hours, obviously I wouldn't be able to charge on a normal plug within the cheap rate tariff time. I'd still be charging at 7:30 in the morning when the price goes up. So that's where your home charger comes in, because it's still charging basically at what's coming out of your mains at 240 volts or whatever, but if you have a specific charger, a proper electric car charger installed, you can get more amps through it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they join phasers together. I'm not really an electrician, but basically, if you have a proper charger stuck on your wall outside, you can get a lot more amps through per hour than you can on a 13 amp socket, and I think you can charge up to about 7 kilowatts an hour instead of 2. So basically, you can charge a battery 3.5 times the size in the same time period. But I don't need it because the battery in the car's not that big. It's not got that much range. But if it was something like a Tesla that got huge amounts of range and huge batteries, then it wouldn't need a specific home charger. But it's amazing how many electric cars there are out there. You know when you never notice a car until you've got one, do you? Whatever sort of car you buy, you suddenly notice other ones of that car on the road. And the thing about this Peugeot Ion stroke Citroen C0 stroke Mitsubishi IMF is I've seen one other on the road. I've just not seen any more. So there's not many of them about, but I do see some Nissan Leafs about. But now they have a green flash on the number plate. You can have a little green sticker to stick over the Euro thing on your number plate now. Just a little green, a blank green sort of bit that goes down the side of your number plate. And that denotes it's an electric car, and it denotes it's a true electric car, not a hybrid. You shouldn't have them on hybrids. It should be only on true electric cars. And I'm starting to see a lot of these little green stickers on number plates, so there must be a lot more electric cars out there than you think. Now, this thing looks a bit unusual. It kind of stands out a bit as an electric car, even though actually there was a petrol variant of it before. It is actually a petrol car that was converted to an electric model, but it does look a bit space age. But now all the electric cars just look like any other car. And Teslas, I think Teslas are the most bland, horrible looking car. They just look like every other car in the world. These supposedly super Teslas, you think they'd be fantastic. You think they'd look like DeLoreans or something, wouldn't you? But they don't. Teslas really, really blend in. They are a really bland, uninteresting looking car. Sorry anybody who's got a Tesla, but yeah, sorry Elon, but yeah, I mean, he's done that wonderful Cybertruck thing that looks fantastic. I really like the Cybertruck. I'd quite like one of those. But the Tesla cars are just like any other car, really. They're not nothing to make them stand out, nothing to make you want one, really. Bit dull, yeah. Technology in them is fantastic, probably, but you don't really want a lot of technology in a car because it's more to go wrong, isn't it? An electric car, what I think is the beauty of an electric car is it's a lot simpler than a car with an internal combustion engine in it. So basically you want batteries, motor, and some sort of variable switch to go between the battery and the motor to vary how fast it goes, and that's basically all you want, really. I would quite like a milk float. I would quite like an electric milk float. I've always fancied an electric milk float. I've got nowhere to put one though, and also they fetch ridiculous amounts of money these days. Wesley says there's an ever-increasing count of Teslas around these parts. How do you spot them though, Wesley? How do you spot them? Because they just blend in, don't they? Peter says, is that 7 kilowatt hours over single phase? Yes, yes. I've only got single phase. I've not got 3-phase electricity installed here. Very few people, as far as I know, in domestic properties have 3-phase electricity. I didn't know of somebody. I heard a story once about somebody who got a bit of 3-phase workshop equipment. I think it was a milling machine or something like that, and the story went that when he wanted to use it, they plugged it into his own electricity supply, but he also had extension leads that went 2 or 3 doors that way down the street and 2 or 3 doors that way down the street, because they were on the different phases, so he could get all 3 phases. I don't know how true that is or not, but that's a story that I have been told by a couple of different people on different occasions, so there must be something in it somewhere. Christopher says, can you show us your black phone with the dial 12? I got a GEC phone from 1960 with the dial 12. Right, can I pick it up without dislodging everything? There you go, Christopher. Can you see that? It's a bog standard 706 case. It's got nothing at all underneath it, as you can see, but it has got those domed feet if you look at them, not the feet with the little sort of recess in the middle. That'll go on with the dial 12, and of course with just the numbers around the outside. There you go. Needs a dust actually. Black phones get very dirty very quickly. Peter says, I have 2 phases at my house. How do you have, or why do you have 2, Peter? What's the use of 2? Or do you live in a very big house? Oh, the annex is on a different phase from the main building. Well, that's supposedly good, isn't it? Because they're supposed to even the phases out. You know, when they're putting electricity into a certain area, they're always supposed to even the phases out. So house number 1 is supposed to be on that phase, house number 2 is on the next phase, and house number 3 is on the next phase, then back to 1 again, sort of thing. But sometimes they don't. I know the Midland Railway Centre at Butterley, if anybody knows of that place, that entire site is almost all on one phase. Because whoever wired it up just sort of getting to the red wire or something like that. So, but it's very unevenly loaded, that is. People there have told me they have problems with the electricity because the phases are not loaded evenly. Well, it says, is it definitely a separate phase? Yeah, it must be, I guess. Christopher says, my GC phone looks somewhat like yours. Yeah, should do. It's just basically a 706. It is a 706. It'll come off the same production line as 706s. It's just that they've got some dial 12s left over, so I thought I would bung them in. Peter says he's got 415 volts between the phases when tested with a multimeter. You can almost drive a tram up your garden then, Peter. They'll run on 500. Yeah. That must be handy. 415 volts. See, here's something you didn't know. Here's a little bit of trivia for you. Traditional British trams run about 550-600 volts DC. So the track is earth. The wire up above is about 550, 600-ish volts DC. Yeah. Modern trams, like the ones in Sheffield and Manchester and that, have up to about 750 volts DC going through the wires, but it's still DC. Now, if you have a trolley bus, which of course doesn't have tracks because it's a bus, but has 2 poles on the top and 2 wires, one wire you would think is sort of about 600 volts DC, and the other wire is ground, wouldn't you? But it's not. Because to make the overhead safer in case it falls down, what they actually do is energise one wire at 250 volts DC and the other wire at minus 250 volts DC. So if the wires fall down and you happen to touch one of those wires, there's only 250 volts going to get you, not 500. So they're not, the voltage the trolley bus runs on is not relative to ground. It's one wire relative to the other wire. And Christopher's just confirmed it. He says, yeah, Melbourne have 600 volts DC in the street for the tram. Yeah, well, the trams in Melbourne are, well, I'm hoping they've still got some of the old ones. What were they, W class in Melbourne, I think they were. I'm hoping they've still got some of the old ones running about. Is it Melbourne I'm thinking of? What was that film about that guy that worked for the tramway? It was a bit like Rain Man, but he worked for the tramway company and he built his own tram to get to work. I forget what it's called. It's an Australian movie, all filmed in Melbourne on the trams. Somebody will tell me in a minute what it's called, I'm sure. I've only seen it once. The title of the film is the name of the guy, the name of the main character. And it has been on TV once, and it's only been on once, and I remember it's been quite a good film. I think, don't they do like a bank job or something, and get away on a tram or something like that? But the Melbourne trams play a massive part in that movie. I think it's Melbourne. Fairly sure it's Melbourne. Come on, Christopher. What's that film called about all the trams? That movie. It's quite an old movie now. It must be probably 30 years old now, that movie. Chris says, yeah, the old trams in Melbourne, Christopher says, were the W8 class tram and the 1970s Z3 class tram and 1980s A class. Whereas he says the film's called Malcolm. That's right, the film's called Malcolm. It is. Have you seen it recently, Wesley? I'd quite like to see it again. That. Peter says there's no trams in the Melbourne round here in Cambridgeshire. There's no trams in the Melbourne round here in Derbyshire either, Peter. Although there's some not far away at Crouch. Michael T says the film's called Malcolm with Colin Friels. Yeah, Malcolm. It was called Malcolm. Quite very, very funny film. Very, very funny. As far as I know, it's only been on television in the UK once. They ought to put it on again because is quite a funny film, that, where he actually builds his own tram. They must have had phenomenal help from the people at the Melbourne Tramway to make that movie. They must have had to shut off at Melbourne to make it. Peter says there's a guided bus. Ah, yes, the guided bus. The worst of all worlds. Guided buses are a bit freaky. There's one in Leeds as well. There's a guideway in Leeds, or there was. I don't know if it's still there or not. And they were going to do it in South Yorkshire as well. Don't know if it was going to be in Sheffield or Rotherham or somewhere. But they saw signs. All they basically do is they just put a set of basically little sticky outy guide wheels on the ends of the steering arms of an ordinary bus, and then build the curbs up a bit higher so that when the bus hits the curb at that side, that wheel hits it and it turns it that way, and when it hits the curb at that side, that wheel hits it and turns it that way. And the key to it is whoever makes the guideway, whoever lays the curbs from the council, has to make it exactly the same width as the bus, because if you make it a little bit too wide, the bus goes along doing this from one side to the other, sort of bouncing off each curb. But it does work. I think there's one of those in Melbourne as well, isn't there? I think it's a guided bus in Melbourne. I think that's where the idea came from. The idea came from somewhere in Australia, I'm pretty sure. But yeah. Christopher says the famous red City Circle tram in Melbourne are not in service now. They've been stopped running due to asbestos. Asbestos? Why? Why does asbestos matter when the thing is running? We used to have trains here that were full of asbestos. Because they used it as sound deadening and also as insulation in the panels of the trains. And when they scrapped them, they had a devil of a job scrapping them because they had to remove all this asbestos. But some of those units are preserved. Class 101 DMUs had it in. That's one that I know had it in. And the ones that are preserved did go for specialist asbestos removal. But the thing is, asbestos isn't dangerous if you leave it alone. If it's hidden inside a wall cavity or something, and you're not continually drilling holes in it or poking it around or messing with it, it's totally fine. It's only when you start sort of beating it with a stick or tearing it up or messing about with it that the fine particles come off it, the spores or whatever they call them, and you breathe them in, and then that's what gives you the problems. But if it's just left alone, it's totally fine, particularly if it's been painted over. That was one way of dealing with it. If you can paint it in situ, I think they have special paint they put on it that kind of locks it in under the paint layer, of course, so nothing can come off it. So there's no reason to worry about it. You know, it's fine if it's in situ. It's only if you start messing with it that you need to worry about it. And how much you need to worry about it depends on what sort of asbestos it is as well, because some asbestos is a lot worse than other types of asbestos. Michael says, my soffits are all asbestos. Yeah, a lot of people's garage roofs are asbestos. But I think, is that white asbestos and it's not as bad as blue asbestos, or is it the way around? There's white and blue asbestos, and one is a lot worse than the other. And I can't remember which way around it is. Spec says Vic Berry's fire tunnel. Fire tunnel. Michael T says 1947 house. Yeah, 1947 house would almost certainly have had a garage that was made out of asbestos. Yeah. Yeah, it's not as bad. I mean, I've spoken to people that said that they used to work with asbestos and they used to roll it up into a ball and at lunchtime have a game of football with it. Imagine how bad that must have been. But those people are still here, they're still with us, so I don't know if they just got lucky or if we worry a bit too much about asbestos. But yeah, the thing about asbestos is it's totally fine unless you are breaking it up and basically scattering it around. You know, that is the thing you shouldn't do. Mess with it. If you were sawing it up or something, then yeah, that's a bit dodgy for breathing it in and stuff. But once it's there, if it's on your garage roof or something, and particularly if it's covered in years and years of lichen and moss and that, it's probably fine. Don't worry about it. Spet says, how do they remove asbestos before scrapping trains? I'm not totally sure, but I think basically a team of people go in wearing these full hazmat suits, you know, and a respirator, they're breathing bottled air and stuff, you know, so they're not basically breathing in anything or got no contact with the environment that they're in. And I think they basically take the asbestos out, put it in very strong plastic bags, totally seal it up airtight, and then they dispose of it into like a landfill or something, I think, never to be seen or heard from again. Because it's an inert thing, you know. You put it in landfill if you've got somewhere to put it. It's not like nuclear waste. It's not giving off anything nasty. It's just the fact that it has these particles that get in your lungs and irritate your lungs and stuff, as far as I'm aware. So there's no nasty gases or anything given off by it. So I think they just literally put it in heavy duty plastic waste containers, bags or buckets or whatever, and then get rid of it. But the environment they do it in, they're all in hazmat suits, and I think they have like giant vacuum cleaner type things to suck up all the air, and any spores that are in the air, suck them up and probably go through some sort of filter or something. I know it's a very expensive process to do. It's a very expensive process to do, but you kind of have to do it whether your train is going to be preserved or scrapped. But having said that, some of the scrap yards are a bit dodgy, you know, and you know, like some of the vehicle scrap yards, yeah, you know, when they scrap a car or something, they should take all the oil out and all the battery acid out and dispose of it safely and that. But what do some dodgy scrap yards do? they just take the drain bung out the oil and let it seep into the ground, don't they, and stuff if they're a bit dodgy. And I imagine something similar probably happens if they're a bit dodgy with asbestos as well. I imagine they probably just wear a bloody COVID type face mask and put it in a black bin bag and chuck it in a tip somewhere. But that's not what they should do. But what they should do, what they do a lot of the time, are do different things. But to have it removed properly is very, very expensive. Where it says it usually gets tented off and has forced ventilation, so yeah, that kind of confirms what I'd guessed at. Chris says one of the asbestos test trains is coming back. Is it coming back in passenger service though, Christopher, or is it coming back as some kind of engineering test unit? Because if it's coming back as an engineering test unit, I imagine that's probably okay. Like I say, if the asbestos is in the train and it's like inside the wall cavity or something, it's not going anywhere. If that train's run for the last 30 years and they've suddenly discovered asbestos in it, it's no more dangerous now than it's been for the last 30 years, is it? So, you know, so don't overly worry about it. I'd worry more about catching something from the passengers than inhaling something from the train, to be quite honest. Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, we've covered the gamut of things this evening, haven't we? We've done a little bit on telephones, we've done street lights, we've done how to remove asbestos from railway rolling stock and trams. Yeah, never let it be said we're not varied on this channel. Right, and of course, as I said earlier, if you want to know more about the Red Rattlers and stuff, or indeed about telephones and stuff, when we're finished, go over to Christopher 2000's channel and he's got loads of videos there that will tell you more, particularly about the railways in Australia, etc, etc. But that is, I believe, about as far as we go for today. Now, next week we are here 6 o'clock ish as normal, because you know me, fashionably late. We are here next week, but we will be out and about. Hopefully we'll get a reasonably dry and nice evening. You watch it, I'll absolutely tip it down now I've said that. And hopefully we will be able to get outside and be able to show you some street lights and stuff next week. Thanks to everybody for taking part once again. Michael T said, did anyone see the programme on the Notre Dame restoration? Cleaning up the toxic lead dust. No, I haven't seen it yet, Michael. It's one thing that I'm meaning to watch. I will be watching it on catch up. But yeah, I've not seen it yet. Another thing to add to my list of things to do after I've watched Dom's video. Dom, I'm on my way. So we'll be back next week, or hopefully out and about, and we'll show you a bit of what's going on outside, and maybe we'll have got some way on this streetlight restoration by then. And we'll show you what the plans are, where we're going to put them, hopefully. But for me, for now, have a fantastic week ahead. Remember, we have got the website you can go and have a look at if you want, andyshed.coldpress.net. And if you're not a patron already, why not join us on Patreon for that little bit of extra content? It's just £1 a month, or the equivalent of £1 a month. www.patreon.com/, and is shared. And as we mentioned the forum earlier, that's gpotelephones.proboards.com. But that really is about as far as we go for today. Thanks to everybody for taking part in it once again. Before you leave, please hit the like button, because it helps us with the YouTube analytics and things. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen, hit the like button thing, and it really, really does help us. We will see you back here, or I will see you back here, same time-ish, more or less the same place, probably just the other side of that window there, next week. But from me for now, have a fantastic week ahead. Have a great May Bank Holiday Monday if you're in the UK, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.